This is a reading from the Autobiography of Maria Valtorta. From that point on, then, I prayed for fallen women, which, of course, increasingly intensified the infernal wrath. Eternal life consists of knowing you, the only true God, and the one you have sent, Jesus Christ. John chapter 17, verse 3. In April 1935, I had a dream, which I could almost call an apparition. When I was drowsy, I saw Martha's mother. Footnote 2. Cited on page 312, note 1. Note that it was in the early hours of the afternoon, so it was unlikely that I had slept to the point of dreaming. She was dressed as usual, with her head veiled. She seemed to be ready to go out. The word white hardly suffices to describe her face. It was a face which transmitted light. There seemed to be an inner lamp shining through it. Not a brilliance at all, but a peaceful light giving peace. She seemed to be standing at the foot of my bed. "Oh, Isolina," I exclaimed, "have you come to visit me?" "Ah, yes, I have always remembered you, you know." "Are you happy?" I knew I was speaking to her after her death, and on seeing her luminous face understood that she was in paradise. "I am happy, for where I am, everyone's happy. My purgatory is not over, though. Not even in the bosom of God has it ended." "But why? How can this be?" "God has given me the reward for my life, which you know was an upright life of sacrifice. But, even in the joy of heaven, I have a thorn in my heart. My Marta, alone in the world, and in an environment which I see is not bad according to the world, but not meritorious with respect to God. What I sowed of faith is dying, for the time being that alone. But once faith falls, my purgatory is this, has always been this, and still lasts, even in heaven. I would like Marta to be with me. Then there would be no longer a purgatory for me, since I would be sure about my child and her soul. I have loved you, Maria. Love me as well. I entrust Marta to you." As she spoke, she became more and more luminous, and finally dissolved into light. That is why Marta is here, instead of being in the offices as before. Mother, who needed help, agreed to my wish. It was just that I had a supernatural motive in taking Marta in, and my mother an entirely human and supremely selfish motive. I have carried out the mission Marta's mother gave me regarding her child. I have nothing to reproach myself for. I welcomed this poor little orphan from her mother's hands with the heart of a mother and a sister, and I have given and give her sincere affection, which is not limited only to foolish sentimentalism, but involves her, foresight and consolation in 1,000 little things. I could not do more for her if she were of my own blood, and above all, I have looked after and loved her soul. When she came to me, her piety had grown quite feeble. This is a picture of Marta Dicciotti. Marta Dicciotti in the early years of her life with Maria Valtorta. Born in Lucca on December 2nd, 1910, she entered the Valtorta household on May 24th, 1935, and remained thereafter. For over 26 years, until Maria Valtorta's death, she was the infirm writer's helper and confidant, sharing every moment of her daily life. I welcomed this poor little orphan from her mother's hands with the heart of a mother and a sister, and I have given and give her sincere affection, which is not limited only to foolish sentimentalism, but involves help for her, foresight, and consolation in 1,000 little things. I could not do more for her if she were of my own blood, and above all, I have looked after and loved her soul. When she came to me, her piety had grown quite feeble. Without sermons which, when delivered to an irritated heart, produce only greater irritation, but simply by loving her very much, and letting her gradually penetrate on her own into myself, entirely donated to God, just praying and letting myself be seen praying by her, I have indeed let myself be seen to bring back to her mind the image of her mother, who prayed so much. To tell her wordlessly that the good always pray, and in prayer find comfort in all their sorrows and all their solitude, I have managed to bring her back, without her being aware, to a living faith, and I hope she will never again lose it, even when I am no longer on this earth. Her mother must now be utterly happy in lovely paradise, where she undoubtedly awaits me to watch over our Marta with her. I regret only having introduced Marta into my mother's grinding gears, but I really hoped she would be stingy, but not bad to the extent she is bad, ungrateful and spiteful towards this poor Marta. I assure you that if Marta had to atone for some sin against the fourth commandment, she has already more than made up for it. But perhaps even this is not without a higher goal, which we shall discover one day. In the meantime, it serves to testify to what my life is like in my mother's hands. Marta can say so much about it clearly, showing my behavior and mother's, and I am not the one who comes off badly as a result. I must say so to be faithful to the truth, without paltry, false modesty. Last night, April 10th to 11th, I was thinking about what I had written in the last completed notebook, and I realized I expressed myself badly on a certain point. I said I got angry with myself and with the doctors because of the phenomenon occasioned by my ovarian ailment. To get angry means to lose one's calm, trust, peace. It means to rebel. No, there was not a bit of this. I reproached. That's what I did. I harshly reproached and punished myself for not being capable of repelling certain sensations, and I quite justifiably reproached the doctors, who remained inert in the face of all my pleas that the neo-formation producing such complex phenomena, disturbing my whole self, be removed. And so it continued for years. Then I finally understood that this, too, was a test, and had a purpose, and I ceased to become unsettled. And the best part is that the temptations immediately started to diminish in frequency. It is evident that the devil, crestfallen on being found out, went off to hell. It is not possible to send him off to anywhere else, don't you think? Now, since I narrated my state to you in detail in that letter in February, he has no longer dared to stick out even the tip of his horn or his tail. Maybe he's gnawing at it in a rage. Good health. And now I must speak of a most painful thing, but it is Passion Sunday. I can then speak of one of my bitterest hours of passion. Impassioned Jesus and sorrowful Mary will help me, and certainly dry my tears, which are already in my throat and ready to fall. I confess to you that I would not like to have to speak of this, because it is too agonizing. But if I fail to speak, my crown of thorns ends up lacking many prickles, and precisely those which are most agonizing, for it has been an agony of the flesh, of the mind, and of the heart, an agony which, as usual, was not understood, sympathized with, or believed, an agony still very intense after 8 years, though it does not now reach the paroxysm it attained in the first hours, lasting months, and is now only a nostalgia swelling my heart and wringing tears from it. A mournful nostalgia, which is, however, so deep that when I feel it more strongly, I am reduced to the state of a poor little bird that has fallen from its nest and languishes on the ground. 7th part. I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Footnote 1. 2nd S. Chapter 7, verse 14. 1. CH. Chapter 17, verse 13. Chapter 22, verse 10. Chapter 28, verse 6. Psalm, chapter 2, verse 7. AC, chapter 13, verse 33. And Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 5. My father's death. Marta came to us on May 24th, 1935. Immediately thereafter, my father began to feel not very well, continually. Poor father said nothing, for he was a stoic about suffering pain. He said nothing so as not to grieve me, so as not to provoke grumbling from his wife, from my mother, has this specialty. When one feels ill, instead of being sweeter, She is harsher than ever, and he said nothing because I think he was also so tired of living in the power of a mad woman. This word must be used in order not to say she was wicked. Mad woman is always better than wicked, because madness is a disease, and wickedness is malice. He was so tired, I was saying, that he looked to death as a great liberation. He had lived as a just man. Nothing disturbed his soul on thinking of his passing. He had lived benefiting many, beginning with his wife, and including relatives, friends, and strangers. He had brought up the young people entrusted to him with goodness. He had always done his duty as a son, husband, father, soldier, citizen, and man among men. He had done so with patience, gentleness, and charity at all times, forgiving offenses, returning good for evil, and overcoming his disgust over the one who disregarded and wounded him at every instant. How much faithful, constant, and long-suffering love he had given to my mother, and how unrewarded he had been by her. Ah, I must not think of it, must not recall. Oh my God, make me forget certain things, otherwise all my blood boils. Let me see you on your cross, where you are able to forgive those torturing you. Let me see your mother, who at the foot of the same cross forgives twice over, for your sake and for hers. Absolute forgiveness, because nothing costs us so much as to forgive whoever inundated with pain the ones we love most. Caress me, Jesus, to heal this wound, which, when barely grazed, hurts in a superhuman manner. Oh, my dad, poor dad, who had only me to love you, and did not have me near you in your last days and at the extreme hour. Mother saw nothing of the very swift decline of my dad, a decline everyone saw, not just me, with my anxious heart of a daughter. My mother now says, "It came like a lightning bolt. He departed in 3 days, and he was so well." No, it was not like a lightning bolt. It was a gradually swelling flood, and it takes months for the water to rise up to the banks before overflowing. Even if she had not wanted to believe my dream of November 19th, she should have believed the first symptoms, appearing a few days later, with the vesical hemorrhage and the discovery of stones in the bladder. She had run to me then, for when there is something which agitates, vexes, or frightens her, then she, who is never with me except to watch over visitors, comes running at once. And with my hospital experience I had told her, it's serious. Generally, vesical calculosis, especially in a man, and particularly when it is already so far advanced as to produce hemorrhages, is soon followed by death within a year. Great care must be given Dad, in any case, to avoid moments of anger, fatigue, and food not suitable for his condition, and also have him treated by the doctor. Words cast to the wind. Afterwards there was the slight embolism involving a blood clot entering his circulation. Not even this served to impede her. According to her, it was all over. In fact, in January, February, March, and April, Father seemed to be better, but I insisted on what I had said, and continued to bear off the label of lunatic. She did not start believing even when, with the arrival of May, Father began to take on a feeble appearance, with a shuffling gait, a yellowish color, and cyanotic lips and cheekbones, and she did not look after him at all. It was a stranger who noticed Father was losing blood, and she told Marta, who told me, and I informed Mother. This happened at the end of May. Precisely in those days I had intercepted a letter addressed to my father, which would have grieved him very deeply, and, if read by my mother, would have rendered him a complete martyr. I am quite happy about having done so and taken care of settling everything in order myself. I still keep that letter, and if Mother were to see it, she would not say, "You acted rightly in sparing Father this worry," but would inundate me with insults and accusations. I am not concerned. I spared my father the final sorrow. June came. I then had the first attacks of chronic peritonitis, with the onset of volvulus. Among other things, I was so agitated by numerous internal examinations which had to be undergone to no avail that I was beside myself. I shall always remember that one day I repelled even Father, who wanted to calm me down. I can still see his painfully surprised look, and I would not have wanted to deserve that look. Never mind. Even this serves to give me a comparison regarding the way Jesus must look at us when we repel him and accuse him of not loving us. It's a look of boundless pain. It contains discouragement, astonishment, resignation, and affliction, affliction, affliction. And it also provides me with the measure of the way our Heavenly Father loves us, not sulking over our fits due to moments of mental turmoil. Rather, he feels sorry for us and loves us, his poor creatures, disturbed by so many things as before. My father did not bear a grudge, and as soon as my fury had passed, he was good to me as previously. I was his Maria, not without defects, but who loved them with all her strength, and loved him alone. Isn't my position the same with respect to the good Lord? I am his Maria, not without defects, but who loves him with all her strength, and loves him alone. Oh, this thought and this recollection of my Father on earth comforts me to have great hope regarding the way my Father in heaven will judge me. Our Father cannot be inferior in magnanimity to his servant Giuseppe, who was able to understand the reasons for his daughter's fit, and forgive with a twofold love, as a father and as a just man. Now Father is in heaven, and sees that his Maria has not stopped loving him, and tends towards him with all her affection. Father managed to understand me to such a degree that he came to tell me around the middle of June, "Maria, this time I'm done for." What agony! I felt my heart capsizing as if a brutal hand were turning it upside down, like a glove roughly pulled off the hand it clothes. I prayed with such faith, with such pressing insistence, that I really believed God would hear me. At times, amidst the tears which cannot fail to fall when I recall certain things, I still say to myself, "But why has God not left me my father? If a parent had to be taken from me, why did he not take my mother? My poor dad would at least have lived out his final years in peace, for there were never disagreements between me and him." At the cost of 1,000 sacrifices, I refilled the excessively meager purse. I would pay his fines without mother's realizing, repair what he ripped or stained to keep him from being harshly reproached, and content him in his greediness as a big baby. Poor Dad, who no longer had even the joy of going out with me for those lovely strolls which at one time had been our delight. For Mother kept me on a chain, and I got worse and worse. I say this to myself in the hours of most acute longing for caresses, and I call him, and I believe my cry penetrates into the heavens. Now, though, since everything in Italy has been going on from bad to worse, I tell myself, it is well that Father died. He thus does not have this sorrow. He who was such a soldier and patriot. I say so amidst tears, but I say so and add, "Thank you, O God, for having spared that faithful servant of yours this bitterness." And the days passed, the 15th, the 16th, and so on. Increasingly ill, he still dragged himself along, going as far as St. Paulino's to the Pinewood, and back. He must have suffered terribly. I know what it's like to suffer from calculosis, cystitis, and vesical hemorrhages. It's like being full of sulfuric acid. I suffered seeing him suffer, and from my ever more spasmodic pain. They had been giving me morphine for months, but with the sole benefit of relaxing my nerves, stiff from tetanic contractions. The pain was not reduced at all, but, on the contrary, my sensitivity became sharpened. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I mean that sense, always drowsy in me, underwent a revival produced by the drug. I saw only monsters, had only intense nausea, and deliriums proper to someone poisoned with narcotics, and morbid sensitiveness. Who are the ones asserting that opium, morphine, and similar substances give one sweet visions, calm frenzies, and appease the hyper-excitability of sense? How deceitful! They must be depraved to like that paradise of monsters and strange faces. I have never felt anything but painful effects from morphine, to the extent that, taking it day, after 2 years of struggle between the doctor who wanted to administer it and me who did not want it, I won and never again wished for it. And here, I was more successful than the subdeacon Girard. cited on page 260. After 2 years of shots, including double ones, of morphine, I prohibited them for myself and felt no craving. The pains, I repeat, remained just the same. My heart became weaker, and my mind was altered with pernicious forms of sensuality. Here as well, who says that morphine cannot be taken away when one is habituated to it? What lies! It sufficed to want to eliminate it. If it were no longer found in pharmacies, people would still get along, don't you think? It's all a matter of wanting to. On the evening of June 26th, Father had to yield. I was half dazed from the sopor and unable to come out of it, even to say a word to him. Oh, how convinced I am the devil exerted an influence to increase my future cross. I did not see my father again. He took to his bed on Wednesday evening, and until Friday at dawn remained stationary. At 9 he began to be unable to reason clearly. He got up and came downstairs. He wanted to come into my room and lie down on the other bed. His reason was in disorder, but his subconscious still guided him to his Maria, the only one who loved him. From my bed, for his good, I ordered him to go back to his bed at once. It would have been better if I had let him come. He would have died with me close by, and I would have had the comfort of assisting him. He went back upstairs without our even seeing each other's faces. For me, Father is always halfway down the stairs, about to come. He will move from that point to meet me when I expire. He immediately got worse after getting up. The doctor used sleight of hand to steal from me phials of digelin, spartane, and so on, but I saw and understood. I was completely intent on the effort to understand. I asked the doctor for the truth, but it was denied me. I asked to be carried upstairs to Dad in someone's arms, and it was denied me. I prayed until it hurt, in order to wrest from heaven the grace of Father's remaining with me, and it was denied me. Saturday came. During the night, Father had been delirious. Poor Father, septicemia from the vesical calculosis had presented itself towards Friday evening. In the night, he had risen and gone towards the balcony. He was hot and did not know what he was doing. Mother had him go back to bed with her usual system, by scolding him, until the end. She herself declared in the morning, I said such a mournful mouthful to him that he no longer dared move, and I was able to sleep. I have no trouble believing she said a mouthful to him. She had been doing so for 41 years. Poor Father. The doctor came at 8, and did not conceal the fact that he was very seriously ill, even from me. He's dying, I said. Go right ahead and say so sincerely, and tell Mother, who understands nothing. And he, the doctor, told Mother, and then there were the usual nervous outbursts which are inevitable in my mother at certain moments. I did not lose my head. I had already told Mother, for, after the great agitation, the calmness of Dad, whom I no longer heard tossing himself about in the room over mine, informed me that the coma was setting in. I had not been a nurse for nothing, but I had not been believed. I again started insisting on being taken upstairs, but the doctor refused to give Father and me this consolation. We would have been so happy. Then I sent word to the telegraph office to inform our friends and relatives, and also sent for the priest, but the parish priest was ill and did not come. In the afternoon, a priest who said he was a military chaplain came instead. I didn't like him very much, though. At noon I had tried to get up and, dragging myself along, had reached the foot of the stairs, but I could go no further. A dear sister from the Barbentines acted as a daughter for my father. She was quite good and affectionate. As long as I live, and afterwards, I shall always keep her in my heart. This good creature assured me that Father had received the priest well, and made his confession. He received nothing else, though, neither viaticum nor anointing of the sick. I don't know why. The catastrophe was approaching. Since the sister sleeping in was not there, an acquaintance referred to as a young man who accompanied patients at night. Mother went to bed. She went to bed, do you understand? To bed. With my dad in agony. A stranger stayed, and he understood everything. He never lost his clearness of mind. I prayed and prayed and prayed. At times then, Not even the most ardent prayer perforates the vault of the firmament to rise up to God. It seems not. Mine did not rise up, and it really was my very heart which bore it up there. With us there were also two young ladies who took turns sleeping in when I was ill. That night both had come because they knew Father was dying. At 2 a.m. on June 30th, a loud cry cast forth by Father, "Mother!" made everyone give a start, and that was the end. He felt it coming and called his wife. He always called her mother, and she wasn't there. Ah, my God, who today have given me a real day of passion, you should hear me in my desire, in my needs, only on account of what it costs me to forgive, in your name, my mother, for having left my father to die so alone. I was seized by a heart crisis which took me right to the threshold of the hereafter. Why did I not die together with Dad? Why? The doctor, rushing in, kept me alive by dint of injections. I am not grateful to him for it, as I am not grateful to him for not having let me see Father either alive or dead, with the excuse that I might have died. I always reproach him for having failed to keep his word, since he had promised me he would do so. I believed him until the moment, 2 days later, when the coffin was sealed. I hovered between life and death all through June 30th. I made all the funeral arrangements, though. Mother could do nothing but make silly scenes of belated love. But I don't know what happened in me. I certainly bordered on madness, and remained in that state for months. My parish priest always says so. I was now alone. Alone, do you understand? Alone. There was no longer anyone on earth, in heaven, God and Father, but heaven seemed to me so deaf and distant. My faith, which had so trustingly taken flight in asking for Father's life to be spared, had fallen back to the ground with its wings broken. It had broken them by crashing into a wall of bronze, which my prayer could not penetrate. I lived through tremendous days. At times I was myself lucid and balanced, capable of giving instructions, dictating epigraphs, and so on. At times I was a madwoman. I seemed to have two bodies, two minds in a single body, and I no longer knew which was mine. My father. Perhaps, if I had seen him, I would have taken stock of the situation better. But that way, woe to me if I heard movement in Dad's room. I lived without eating. 2 or 3 plums and a phial of physiological serum were my daily meal, and unfortunately they served to keep me alive. They told me that Father, after death, had recovered all his former manly handsomeness, for my father was handsome. They told me that even 48 hours later, he was free from every sign of being a corpse. I believe it. He was a just man, and whoever lives as a just person in death recovers beauty and a special, majestic immunity. But I did not see him. It is a sword rending my heart. I have cared for 1,000 dying people and have laid them out in death, but not my father, the two of us in the same house, and I did not say goodbye to him, either alive or dead. Enough, enough. If I go on any further, I'll go mad again. You have taken everything from me, O God. You have wanted to reign as an absolute sovereign, and have made yourself a throne over my pierced heart. You have laid out this poor heart of mine, adorned with so many, too many, wounds at your feet. A poor heart, never finding any peace on earth. How much sacrifice you cost me, O love, for my God, but none equals this sacrifice of having had to lose my dad that way. Almost 8 years have passed, but my pain is the same, and I cannot hear someone call out Father, or see a child in his father's arms without feeling my heart being crushed under the weight of longing for my father. How well I understand Therese when she speaks of her dad. For me too, Dad was everything. He was the king, a just and loving king who knew everything and provided consolation for everything. And for him, I was the little queen, or rather an empress, and quite despotic, since with him I made up for what I could not have elsewhere. For me, he represented all the perfections of beauty, goodness, intelligence, and love. Even though the illness of 1910 had impaired his intelligence, To me he was always everything. The only affliction he occasioned to me was his being pitied by many and derided by the less good for having regressed somewhat to childishness, prone to weeping and forgetfulness. When he died, I should have thought that he would no longer be tortured and scorned, but one does not think of certain things when one's heart is a big wound. My mother did not, and does not acknowledge that I loved father in such fashion as to suffer over his death. She even accused me just a few days ago of having made him worse by having had oil given to him, the only thing able to soothe the inflammation of the urinary ducts and favor the expulsion of the stone, assisting the decongestion brought about by urotropine. Heaven knows. With father dead, my mother, now complete mistress, became utterly despotic. This is a picture, 4 pictures of her father. Her father, Giuseppe Valtorta, at different ages.